We acknowledge we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples.
Hello, and welcome to Tips and Tricks for Helping Children Return to School. My name is Akshan Siddiqui. I am a psychologist with the team at Speak. Yvonne Wyndham, a speech-language pathologist, and I will be presenting you with some ideas to make your family's transition back to school as easy as possible. We have several topics that we cover in a series of presentations. This particular video is on preparing for change. Some of our other topics include getting ready for school expectations, improving focus, and managing feelings of anxiety. We also have one other one that's more suitable for helping older students that covers much of the information in these other 4 videos. The videos can be viewed in any order, so feel free to watch them in whichever order you prefer. Going back to school is a big and sometimes challenging transition. Transitions are changes from what we're typically used to. We can have smaller transitions, so things like going from one activity to another, or larger ones like going back to school, starting a new job, getting married, and all of those types of things. Transitions can cause stress and anxiety because they are a change from what we've been used to. They can go more smoothly, though, and be less stressful for everyone if we prepare for them in advance. The purpose of this presentation and others in the series is to help you prepare your children for going back to school as easily and as painlessly as possible for everybody. So there's a couple of different ways or topics that we want to cover when we talk about preparing for going back to school. One is explaining what school might look like when we go back to your children. And the second part is counting down to when your children will be returning. But before we get to our explanations, it's important that we prepare our children for the concept of uncertainty. Particularly this year, we don't really know what's going to happen when school restarts. At the time that this video is being filmed, we haven't really received much direction in terms of what school might look like. And that includes whether students will be going back full time, or whether they'll be going on certain days of the week, or what rules might be in place. For example, if people will be expected to wear masks and things like that. So it's important that we do discuss that we are uncertain and that we don't always know if something will be happening for sure when we discuss what will be happening and when things will be happening with our children. But by the time you do view these videos, it's possible that you have a firmer understanding of what is going to be taking place. And in that case, please feel free to make adjustments to the information in our videos as you see fit. When we're explaining what school might look like, we would want to approach it differently depending on the age and maturity level of our children. If you have older or more advanced children, then you can have open and honest conversations with them. Just be clear and discuss all the new rules that might be in place for them at school. Answer any questions if you can, and recognize that it's okay to say you don't know if you don't have the answers. On the other hand, if you have younger children or those with special needs, you'll want to use visuals to try to make the rules as clear to them as possible. One way to make the rules clear is through using a social story. A social story is a short story that helps teach specific skills through information about everyday events. The terms social story and social stories are trademarks originated and owned by Carol Gray. There are many free returning to school social stories that are available online, but you might want to create your own and personalize it to your child as much as you can. In that way, you can use pictures of your child, you can use their name, just to really draw them into the story that you've developed. When you're creating a social story, it's important that you explain some of the things that will likely be the same for your children when they go back to school, but then also go into more specifics about what things might be different. So they might need to wear masks, or there might be other people at school wearing masks. They might need to stay 6 feet apart from people when they're at school. They might be having lunch in their classrooms. It's hard to say at this point exactly what the new rules will be, but once you have a better understanding, then you can really create a social story that's really tailored to your particular situation and your children and their schools. You should also read these stories with your children daily for the days or weeks leading up to the first day of school, just so that your children can get adjusted as much as possible to the idea of what their new normal will look like.
Here are some examples of how to explain to your child what school might look like using different social scripts. The first one is just an example of how you can pull things from the internet, just images, or upload them from your computer and type up a social story that will explain to your child what it might be like going back to school. Each page of the story is broken down into single steps, single pieces of information that will talk about what it might be like when they go back to school. You can also make a social script for returning to school into a video. So the same one right here that we did before can be made into a video, and we'll show you that here. So you can just record your story and make it come to life for your child in terms of explaining what school might look like.
Going back to school. I will go back to school, maybe in the fall. When I go back to school, some things will be the same. Lots of the same teachers and students will be at school. I might even have the same teacher or classroom that I did last year. It will be nice to see everyone again. Not everything at school will be the same in September. I might have a new teacher, new classmates, and a new classroom. There will also be some new rules for me to follow when I go back to school so that everybody stays safe and healthy. I will have to wash my hands a lot to help keep them clean. My teacher might ask me to use hand sanitizer when I can't wash my hands. I will need to sit and stand at least 2 meters or 6 feet away from other people. Some people might even be wearing masks at school. I might need to wear a mask when I'm near other people too. There could be other new rules that I need to follow that I don't know yet. If there are any new rules, my teacher will talk to me about them when I go back to school. Following these rules will help keep me, my friends, my family, and my teachers safe and healthy. My parents and teachers will be happy when I follow these rules. I will be happy too.
You can also present similar information on one sheet instead of lots of different pages. So one page might look just like this, or even 2 pages. Similar information, but done in a much tighter way, and maybe older children would be able to understand it as a 1 or 2 page social story. If you don't want to make your own, you can just Google social stories or social scripts and just get a downloadable, ready-made social story. There are lots on there that are specific to going back to school after the lockdown. Example. Here is an example of a website called Social Stories for Kids. It's just been Googled, and they actually have downloadable social stories. And these are actually for free for the COVID-19 explanation of what it might look like to return. And finally, why not just make your own? You can do line drawings or take photographs of your family and still use that as a way to help explain what school might look like.
The other topic that we want to focus on when we discuss preparing your children to go back to school is the timing of when they'll be going back. One way to count down to when it's time to go back to school is using calendars. Calendars are best for older children who have an understanding of what a calendar is and how you can use them. If you don't have a calendar at home, don't worry, there are printable ones online. You can also turn it into a project and make your own calendar with your children at home. What you would do is try to make it really clear which day they're going back. So using a really bright color to help it stand out. So whether it's red or a yellow, something that will make it really clear to your children. You would use marker or pencil, crayon, whatever it is that you have, and circle the day that they'd be going back. And then about 2 weeks before school starts, you would start crossing off a day every day until you get to the day that they would be going back to school. Another way to use calendars is to write activities on sticky notes, or if you don't have sticky notes, writing them on scrap pieces of paper and using tape or glue to stick them onto a calendar. And then you would pull off a sticky note each day and do the activity that's written on the note. The activities can be anything from going on a walk to the school, calling a friend who they maybe have not spoken, your children have maybe not spoken to in a while, or packing a school bag the day before school starts. So it's really things that will help get them thinking about going back to school and getting them ready. Another way to count down to when it's time to go back to school is by using countdown jars. Countdown jars are more concrete because you're using actual objects to help show your children when it's time to go back by showing them how the objects are decreasing day by day until there's no objects left and it's time to go back to school. These are better suited to younger children and those with special needs, but they can still be used with older students as well. For safety reasons, please do keep the jars away from children when you're not using them. So the countdown jars can contain any object that you have enough of. So if you're starting to count down from 14 days to the start of school, then you would need 14 objects of a particular kind. So whether it's marbles or pencils, buttons, candies, whatever you have enough of. You would count the objects as you put them in the jar, and then you would label the jar with the number of objects. So if you have 14 days, you would put the number 14 on your jar. Then each day you would take out an object from the jar and change the label. So 14 becomes 13, and so on. Another way to count down is through art projects. And with the art projects, you can get really creative. Turn it into family projects that really the sky's the limit here. Ask your children for ideas and do something fun that will get them involved as well. We have a couple ideas for you here that you might want to consider, but again, there's many ideas that are out there. So one idea is to create a paper chain. You would cut strips of paper and then attach them as rings around each other, number each loop, and then tear off one loop per day, starting with the highest number until you have no more loops. Another idea is paper trees. You would draw or print out a tree and then cut out paper leaves and add them to the tree. And then you would pull off one leaf each day until all your leaves are gone. Don't forget that about 1 week or so before going back to school, you should start preparing your children for back to school routines. You would want to start having them wake up at the same time that they would have to for school and start having lunch at the same time as they would have it at school as well. You'd also want to encourage less screen time and encourage them to do more of other activities like reading or outdoor. So here are a few things to remember from this particular video. Preparing your children for big changes will help things go more smoothly and be less stressful, hopefully for everyone in the family. It's important to prepare your children for what school might look like in our new normal because it will be very different from what we're typically used to. It's also important to let your children know when they'll be going back. Different methods work with different children depending on their age and their developmental level. You know your children best, so choose the ways that will work for your family. Thank you for watching our video on preparing for change. We hope that you've learned some useful information and that you will consider watching some of our other videos for more information. Thanks for watching.